Hello, and welcome to third week of 3D Bootcamp. My name is Matthias, or Mito on social media, and I am your teacher for today. We will be doing animation for new people and also people who've been there in previous bootcamps throughout the past weeks. Yeah, I will be going through the basics of how to navigate in Blender to make sure that everyone can follow, even for the people who haven't attended the other times and might not have tried Blender yet. So yeah, I will be doing that to make sure that everyone can follow along. How are you all doing? Hope everyone's good, doing good on this Wednesday. Is it evening? Is it considered evening at this point? I don't know. And yeah, welcome for anyone who's new and hasn't been here for the past times, but also hello to people who show up again and are interested in more 3D, I guess. I am very excited about today. We're doing animation, like I said, which is like my, I guess, expertise or my specialization. So this is very fun for me. This is what I do on a daily basis where I work. So hopefully it's gonna be okay. What we will be doing today is that I have created this, as you can see on the stream up there. I have created a small, very, very, very simple model and rig that will allow us to animate. If you want to follow along in this animation lesson, the link to download the exact file that I'm working in is in the chat, pinned in the chat. So if you wanna follow along, please do. It would be very cool. Or be very fun. So I'm just gonna give people like a bit of time to be able to download it. It's a pretty simple file. It should start the way I see it right now. I haven't touched the file since like from after opening it. So hopefully everything will be similar to what I am seeing on the screen. And then we will also just go through a couple of different things just to make sure that all our settings and stuff they match, just to have it easier so everyone can follow along. I wanted to have a program that allows me to show the key bindings for what I press when I'm using the program, but sadly couldn't make it work. But we'll figure that out for the future. Sadly won't be the case today, but luckily there aren't a lot of key bindings. It's fairly simple. After we've gone through the basics of the movement, things should be pretty all right to figure out, and not too many things, too many complicated things like other times. Because Blender is very focused on hotkeys, I guess, shortcuts and all these different things, so it can become a bit of a mess, but today should be fine. Alright, hopefully everyone has been able to download the file if you want to follow along. Otherwise, lean back, relax, and feel free to ask questions. We have the lovely Christian who is following in the chat and moderating to make sure that he catches all the questions that you guys might have. Some questions we might take later on, or in between if it becomes relevant, or if too many people ask for something specific, then obviously we can take it. But yeah, until then, let us get into it. So, this is Blender, for anyone who's new. When it comes to navigating throughout this 3D environment, there are a couple of different hotkeys or key bindings that we have to think of. So to navigate like around this 3D world space, we are using the middle mouse button on the keyboard. When you hold down the middle mouse button, it's gonna rotate. In this case, rotate around the object that we have in the scene. Very handy, very neat. Together with this middle mouse button, which is like the overall or general way of navigating throughout the program, we will also be using the keyboard for some different hotkeys to navigate differently. So like I'm doing right here, this is called panning. So we're panning the camera. The way you do this is by holding down Shift and holding down middle mouse button at the same time. This will do the panning in the 3D space. It can become a bit of a mess, like sometimes it goes out here and then it's like it rotates really weirdly because it's rotating around what you're looking at in this case. So just like pan back and then it should be okay. Is this the only animation program you work with? Do you recommend other programs as well, just to know if there are options? So I actually don't ever animate in Blender. The reason why we're animating in Blender is because it's free, so it's easy to use. But we can get to that later on as well. I do the program that I use for animation is the program called Autodesk Maya though, which we will be using for the physical bootcamps during next month if you're interested in that. So navigation. So we have these different things, these two. There's rotating and then there's panning. Then we also have zooming, very smooth zooming. So if you hold down Control and then middle mouse button, like hold down middle mouse button, you zoom back and forth in a very smooth manner. This can be quite nice if you want like specific, like a bit more precise zooming, I guess, because otherwise you can also just scroll on your scroll wheel and it's going to give the same type of effect, except it's going to be stepped. I'm pretty sure. It might depend on the mouse. In this case, my mouse like steps itself when I scroll it, so it might be the reason why. But if you just want smooth, you can also hold down Control and middle mouse button. Then there is the last one, that is camera locking to a specific axis. So if I hold down Alt and then I hold down middle mouse button and I kind of drag my mouse while holding down middle mouse button, it's gonna like, I keep dragging and releasing and then holding down and releasing again. This basically just snaps to a specific window or like side view. Or you can also see up here to the left it says right orthographic, back, left, front, top, and button. It's basically just to be able to see it from like a specific view. It can be quite useful, especially also for animation actually, if you want like more precise movement in a certain axis, because that can sometimes become quite useful. So that's navigating in Blender. If you're just tuning in now, or if you're having a hard time following along with that, you can always go back in the video and just watch it real quick again, and then you can watch on like further on throughout the video. You might come with some questions further back then, but then we'll get to those at some point, so it's fine. But you're always welcome to go back and chat. I also just want to make sure does the sound fine? Is it all good? Am I clear enough? Do I have to change anything? If I do so, please let me know. Just for you guys' pleasure, I guess. Okay, cool. So this is a scene that we have open. What you see here is basically I have this model. It's a 3D model. I just made a box, pretty simple box. The reason why I made a pretty specific box, like when it comes to animation, usually you might have a bit more like intense or advanced rigs and all these different things. You can see these small little bones inside of it. This is a virtual rig, basically. It's called a rig, and it's basically it's just virtual bones, I guess, the way that we humans or things work in real life as well. For us to move, we have these specific bones that allows our bodies to stick together and and work, I guess, that including muscles and such, but that's a different story. This is not an anatomy class. But we use these in the animation world. We use these virtual bones to control our characters and create animation throughout that, which I will get to and show you how. So down here we have this menu. Usually, I'm pretty sure it's like, it kind of looks like this, or maybe it looks like this in something called the timeline, and then it's kind of just like dragged down, and you don't really notice it when you're just working with Blender in general, because it's not shown like that much. But this menu is an animator's best friend. So we can, it's already dragged up for you guys if you use the same file, but you can just like hover over this and drag up, and then you'll have this specific window. The navigation kind of works similar in this window, which is just holding down middle mouse button and then like dragging around. Then it's gonna drag around the timeline. You can see all these numbers, the different numbers, they represent frames. So when you see like 10 here, that means we're on frame 10, we're on frame 20, we're on frame 30, because when we do animate, we do it in frames. Kind of like if you're playing a game, or if you're watching a movie. Usually movies are, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not too sure about this, but a lot of movies are shot in like 24 or 25 frames per second, depending on which part of the world, because in the different parts of the world they do make movies and such differently when it comes to animation. When it's animated animation, usually it's also like 12 frames and such, or 30, depending on what you do. But these frames, they are very important for us animators to keep track of what we are doing. I'm pretty sure this file that we're working in is working in 24 frames per second right now, which means for every 24 frames, a second has passed. That it also becomes quite important to work with timing and such when it comes to animation. Sorry, I'm a bit late. It's okay. Welcome. I hope you're doing good. If you feel like you missed anything, or if you're not too familiar with Blender, please go back in the video just to make sure that you can follow along as well. If not, I haven't really touched on too much when it comes to animating. Or do download the link that is pinned in the chat as well. So do that. Can I have a fast recap? Preferably just go back in the video and watch it again, and then it should be fine. I've pretty much explained everything, so it should be cool. It's pretty simple, just how to navigate in Blender and such. Okay, so this isn't the menu that you're in right now. This should be the menu that you're in. This is called the graph editor. I'm changing these different editors in this small little button to the left of the screen. This indicates a lot of different editors that you can have open down here, and the one we're using today is the graph editor. The graph editor is, like I said earlier, an animator's best friend. You're pretty much spending most of your time sitting in this small little graph. You know, like how in school as well, when you had math and stuff and you were playing with coordinate systems, I guess. That's kind of what you do in animation too. It sounds boring. It's not. It's pretty cool. So we're creating the armature as well. No, so do just download the file that I've given you. With the whole armature thing, that's a whole other subject, and it's two different things when it comes to the 3D world, but we're only focusing on animation right now. It might become a class in the future, if people are interested in creating that as well. If not, you can also find a lot of rigs on the internet if you do feel like animating something more specific. Cool. So we are in the graph editor. This is very nice. Let's start off by making sure that our settings are set up correctly. So there are a couple of things that I do want to change. Hopefully where my webcam is we won't really be using, so it shouldn't really be a problem. If I do, then I'll figure something out. But right now, you should be in what we call pose mode, which you can see up here to the left. There's this little button that says pose mode. If it doesn't say pose mode, it might say object mode, and your scene might look like this. Then if you want to go into pose mode, you click on the skeleton here, or the armature, and then you go up into the mode, and then you select pose mode. The pose mode is how the mode that we have to be in to animate, basically, and allows us to manipulate these virtual bones that I have created beforehand for us. Cool. So while we are in pose mode, we need to make sure that there is this small little button up here, this little magnet. This little magnet, when you hover over it, it says snap. It's pretty annoying, so we don't want to use that. If it's lighting blue, turn it off. We don't want it. What it does is basically it just steps whatever you do, and this removes a lot of control for your animation and becomes really annoying to work with. It can be pretty good if you want like specific increments of something, but that is not the case today. So we turn that off, the small little magnet, and then we want to select this thing that's called the transform pivot point. We want to change this to individual origins, and the reason why we do that is, let me show an example, is because if I select, like shift select all these different ones, so like I press one, I hold down shift, and then I press the other ones to make sure that they're all selected, and I want to rotate them, they just rotate in like only like one joint rotates. And that means that you have to sit with each individual joint and animate those individually. We don't want that. So what we do is that we just select this little thing up here at the top and click individual origins instead. Now we get this result, which is a lot more fun and looks a lot cooler when it comes to animation. Cool. So those are the two like specific things that we want to make sure is correct on all people's screens, because if those aren't applied and it's something else, it can be very confusing or annoying to work with. So that's just the easiest for us to work with, at least in my opinion, in this case specifically. Okay, so again, if you haven't used Blender before, I want to make sure that there are some specific things that you're able to do when it comes to, so we went through navigation and such, but we can also translate and rotate, which are two different things that we use for animation. We can technically also use scale, this thing, but usually when it comes to a rig, you don't want to touch the scale, because when the rigger, the person who made the skeleton for the animator, has made this, they have usually made it in this specific size, unless the rig is created for you to be able to scale it, and a lot of rigs don't have that option, so leave that be. Do not scale it. It will only bite you in the ass. Even though it looks kind of cool when I do this, not gonna lie. Look at the smoothness from that. Okay, So, the way that we can manipulate these different bones is by, let's start off by selecting the bottom bone, and then we can press G on the keyboard. This allows us to move around the joint. I only want to move the bottom joint in this case. Again, usually a joint is made for specific things, and when you, for example, press on some of the other joints and you press G to move it, it just rotates instead. I actually didn't know that was the case, but it's pretty cool that it just auto rotates instead, because it tells you you cannot move this joint. Well, look at that, Blender. Good guy, Blender. That's some nice stuff. So the only times you can actually move the whole model is only by selecting the bottom joint in this case. The other ones will just automatically rotate. Cool. So that's moving. When we also select the joint and we move it, we can move it in a certain axis. So when you have clicked this little joint, this little bone, and press G, you can press X afterwards, like X on the keyboard, and then it's gonna only move in the X axis. As you can tell, it highlights the X axis with this red line, meaning that it's focused on only moving in that certain axis. Because in 3D space, we work with these 3 different axes, like you see in a coordinate system, in math, and all these different things. In this case, red equals the x-axis, y equals the green axis, and then there is z or z, which is the up axis. You cannot see that right now, but we will be able to see it later on. For example, here, I did that by selecting this, pressing G, and then I press Z or Z afterwards, and then you can see the blue line. Cool. So this is how we are going to animate this specific thing. So when going into animation, one of the very important things about animation is learning the concept of these certain principles that have been used throughout many, many years, like in all of animation, all the way back to the beginning of Disney, and I actually don't know if it's gone further than that. I just know that some guy at Disney just did something to write these certain principles to help animators to learn these specific terms of how to create a character. There are 12 principles. I'm not going to go through all of them. You can always on your own in your own time. Or come to the physical bootcamps where I will be going a bit more into the principles of animation. They also count for 2D animation, not 3D specific, like only. So we will be using some of these though, and you always use those when you do animate. Cool. So let's make something very basic at first. So while you see this, make sure you're in pose mode so you can select the bones. What I want to do is that I will select this bottom bone, the base of this skeleton that I've created. I will select this, and then I will press I on the keyboard. This comes up with a menu that says insert key menu. So this gives us a lot of options. A lot of these options I do not know what do or what does, so I will just leave them be because I don't want to mess with them and accidentally make something weird happen. So we just want to select the bone and make sure that you're on frame 1. So in this blue line, make sure it's on frame 1 because that's where we want to start. We press I, and then it comes up with these two. And these two are the ones that we're going to focus on today. It's location and rotation. So because we've keyed the bottom bone, because we want to key the bottom bone, we press I and then we select the one called location. Now you can see down here in your graph editor that we have gotten something like a small little dot. This is a key. So keys determine how whatever we have selected moves. So what we're telling it is that this bone on frame 1 is supposed to be standing right here. So what we want to do is that we can go now select this blue line and then take it all the way to 30. We can select the same bone again. We can press G for moving, and then I want to do it in the X axis to make sure that it's completely aligned with the X axis. And we do something like that. I like that. You don't have to do that much. You don't have to do that little. It's completely up to you. And after this, if you now go down in the timeline and move it, you see that it jumps back to where it was before. This, sadly, can happen quite often. So do make sure that you check before you move this that you have keyed again. So what we do is that we stay on frame 30, we move this over, we confirm it by pressing left click, and then we press I on the keyboard again and location. Cool. So what's happening now is that we have created this red line. This is a graph in our graph editor that connects two of our keys, where the computer basically tries to tell it, hey, this is what I want you to do, or what I want the object that I've keyed to do. So if we play through this now, just by dragging it with the mouse, you can see that it moves. Would you look at that? If you want to play your timeline, to play it as an actual animation, you hold down Shift and then press space. That is just the shortcuts for playing the timeline. So yeah, look at that. Now you've created your first animation. Pretty impressive, huh? So this is the basics of animation. With this one specific graph that we have created, we can also turn it into other things. Right now, it's kind of acting like a, what would you call that? Just a smooth tangent, or a smooth graph, or a smooth thingy majig. Terms very important. Where you can see that it kind of like moves very smooth, so it slowly goes upwards and then slowly eases out. This is basically it saying, or trying to create an automatic ease in and ease out effect, which is why that you see that it at the beginning of the animation it goes kind of slow and then it kind of speeds up a bit. You can kind of change the way that this works by, we have this button over here to the right in the graph editor, this small little thingy. I actually haven't really looked at these. But these can work as well. This is basically, I'm pretty sure, a different way of it calculating how you create keys. Cool. So there is also, if you select, I'm not sure if you have to select, but to make sure that you do, when you select this red line and you right click it, it comes up with this menu. In here there are a couple of different options. For example, inside of the interpolation mode, I knew that word, I don't know why I was struggling to say that. So interpolation mode, basically gives you a lot of options as to how you want this specific curve to act. So we could do something like a linear curve. Now you can see that it just instantly moves from one end to another without the ease in and ease out. This can be useful at times, but also makes the animation look very janky and quite boring, where that smoothness that we had before made it a bit more alive and feel a bit more realistic, because the only times in real life, we take a lot of inspiration from real life physics, but when you basically, nothing stops this hard when it comes to animation. It's pretty much impossible unless you like hit a wall or something. But yeah, you can play around with a couple of these different things. We're just going to use the Bezier option, which makes that smooth motion. Cool. So we have that first bone. Now I want to select all these other different bones. So except for the first one, I want to select these three. Shift select all of those bad boys. When you've selected them, press I for keying, and then we want to do rotation instead of location. Now we have made sure that all these different things are keyed. So what I can do is that I want to create this effect of this box kind of being like dragged behind its own movement, as if its body can't really like follow along. This is something called drag, to get the effect of like physics kind of like pulling you back, which can make it feel a lot more alive. So I might go to like maybe frame 10. Sure, let's do 10. And then I'm gonna rotate, so by pressing R on the keyboard, and then I want to do it in the Y axis this time to make sure that it follows that axis. And then I'm gonna do something like this. This is good. Then I press I again and I key rotation. Now we have this. Look at that. We have basically created this very simple feeling of physics, which makes the animation look a lot more smooth. With just like a couple of keys. This is very simple. We want to make sure that at some point it goes back to like its normal shape. So we can go to frame 30 where we know the other frame ends. And then we want to actually copy these first frames by making sure that it's like upright again, because that just becomes a bit easier to work with. And then after that, you can go in and like clean it. We're kind of working with like making a block out. Kind of, you can also do that when it comes to modeling and sculpting and all these different things. We also do that in animation. We basically just concepting. But what we can do is that we can drag, like left click and drag over the first like keys down here. So they are highlighted with this orange. And then we want to Control C on the keyboard, like copy. And then we want to paste it by pressing Control V. In this case, I'm Control Ving on frame 30, so we basically just copied these keys over to here so it matches. So now it looks kind of like this. Kind of breaks physics. It's fine. We'll fix it. It's cool. But now we have like some sort of motion for this character to understand that, hey, okay, we want this to be upright at first, and then we want it to be dragged down, and then at the end we want it to be upright again. So what we can do right now is that because of the way that this works, what you can do is that you can hold down Control and then you can hold down middle mouse button, which is where I get this type of effect. It kind of like zooms in to the keys, And now that means that we can actually focus on the different keys and the different curves that we have created in this animation. I don't know what this specific thing is. I guess it's just the other joints, I guess. Yeah, okay. So now we can see the keys that we have created and the curves that we have created a bit more. So we see that it goes slowly up and then just instantly goes down again. It still looks smooth, but we kind of want it to keep on like falling behind while it's moving very fast, because when it's in like peak quickness, we want to keep that state of motion from the dragging, because if you're moving that fast, you would have a hard time like getting up again because of the wind and the physics and stuff. I don't know. I failed physics in school, so it's kind of crazy that I'm now an animator. But would you look at that? How do you get the curves to be visible? So the curves, I made them visible kind of by you hold down Control and then you hold down middle mouse button inside of the graph editor, and then it might have kind of looked like this for you, where it's very, very empty, but then I just like kind of drag it up to extend what it looks like, and now I can kind of see the keys. That's how I did it. Hopefully that helped. Cool. I think there's also a way if you can just like press focus on the keys. But I'm not too sure what the shortcut for that is, to be honest. Someone might know. But that's at least an easy way of zooming in and out on your graphs. Hello from Romania. Hello. Welcome. Hope you're doing well. Cool. So we have this graph. We want to make this a bit more interesting. So what we can do is that it's okay to set keys. If you feel like it controls your animation well, that's more than fine. So just as long as you can control it and it doesn't become so hard to figure out what's actually going on in your graph editor that it becomes a problem, because then you have a problem. So what I want to do here is actually I want to rotate again and do it on the y-axis, and then I'm gonna extend it a bit further than the original keys that I made. So I basically just keyed it again. I rotated it a bit more than the key before that, as you can see down here. Now it kind of gets like the up and then continues to be affected by the the gravity, or what is that in physics? Christian, do you know?
One more time.
What's that like? The you're not very aerodynamic because you're getting dragged behind. It's not gravity that drags you behind.
No, it's like the force.
Kinetic energy. I don't know.
Nope.
Is it not?
Chunky? I don't know.
Is it not kinetic energy? What is kinetic energy?
Kinetic energy is by pushing something, you apply that energy towards it. Let's say you have two cubes, and one cube is standing still,
right?
And one cube is like moving, and when it hits the other cube, that energy will transfer from the moving cube to the other. Right. You can also imagine.
I don't think they can hear you, so I'm kind of sad that they're not listening to your story. You can come over and talk, but right now it just seems like I'm sitting and listening to myself with the voices in my head, which is kind of sad. Christian, the moderator in chat who's texting, is basically explaining to me what kinetic energy is, because I failed physics.
I failed physics too. But
sick. Nice. That deserved a high five. Okay, so what we did here is that we just created a key that extends a bit further than the original to keep on that motion of the whatever it is.
Inertia forces.
We can. Oh, they can hear you.
Really? Hi.
Oh, that's embarrassing. Inertia forces. Is that what it's called? Inertia forces. You know what? I'll take your word for it. It sounds smart, so it's probably true. It does not matter. Drag is fine. Yeah. Okay. So we're basically dragging it a bit more. Right now it's not dragging that much, so what I can do is that I can kind of select the keys down here that I have created, like drag select, and then I can make sure that you drag select and not just click, because right now we have multiple selected, which means if you only click, it only affects one of the joints. So by drag selecting, you kind of select all of them, and that makes it easier. So I kind of want to rotate this a bit more. So I press G because that allows me to manipulate it inside of the curve editor or the graph editor, and then I'm gonna press Z on the keyboard. Can I not do that? X, no, Y. Okay, I can press Y, and then it moves up in that axis instead. I'm gonna do like a bit like this. That's probably fun. Which bone is this? I actually don't know what this is. Is this just like the whole... That's kind of interesting. It is. Look at that. Okay, I'm learning something. Don't mind that one. Don't mind the blue one. We're only looking at the light blue ones. Now we're getting this kind of effect. Look at that. Wow, that's crazy. Okay. There's an animation with some drag. Because at the end of this animation, it kind of like it flings up again before it stopped moving, makes it again kind of adds to that unrealistic way of physics working. So we want to make sure that it gets something that's called follow through. What follow through is the effect of, I'm not going to go into physics details or physics specifics because we know I can't do that. So we're talking about animation. Oh no, I'm sorry about this. Sorry, the table is struggling. Don't mind it. Don't mind it. Sorry if that was loud. We want to create something called follow through, which is basically the effect of what happens afterwards, after some like a specific thing has stopped and physics coming in and slapping you, meaning that it will move further than the final position. So what we can do is that we can actually what we can do is that we can take this key on the frame 30 that I created it, and then we can rotate it, and then we can rotate it in the y-axis again, and we can do something like this. Make sure to key this before it disappears in rotation. So now it does this. Boom. No, it reminds me of gang beasts, all of them like flopping around. God, that's so cute. That's so fun. It's so great. Don't they like flop around and stuff? It's so good. Except for in gang beasts, I'm pretty sure it's just physics based, like actually physics, and people no one has actually animated them. They're just going off of stuff, I guess. But look what we have created here. So again, we're still having that effect of it moving forward too fast. But I do also want to create a key. I will just, in this case, select the first key and then like drag select and then Control C and then Control V to copy paste it, just to get it back to the original state. Like have the whiplash, like getting hit by a car or something, and then you're getting absolutely demolished. It's not personal experiences, don't worry, I haven't been hit by a car. So what we can do is that, I actually don't know what these do. Well, they don't exist, that's for sure. I just deleted them. Don't mind that. we're only working with these bad boys. So now we have done this. So what we can do to make it a bit cooler is that we can just take all of these, not the two first ones, and we just like drag them. So I press G and then X to move them in this axis. Because now it kind of like, see, that's horrible actually. So we go back and change that to make it better. Something like this works, honestly. Maybe we can change it a bit. Yeah, you could kind of see that because it kind of slows down at the end, and then the forces manipulates it. Okay. Now we have created a very basic version of this effect. We can go a bit more further into detail. Basically, when it comes to animation, animation is a lot about polishing and a lot about making it look good. So that means you make like a very general version of how an animation should look. And then after you've created that, you start going into detail of, oh, how would this arm like move? Because if I just did like this with an arm, I don't know, can you see my arm? You can. Okay. So if I were to just like do this, it becomes very stale and very boring to look at. So what you can do is kind of manipulate the keys to get like that motion instead, which makes it look a lot more interesting when it comes to the animation. Because we like something called curves, or they're also called arcs. And the concept of arcs is basically making sure that everything has a smooth motion, because things in real life cannot go like this. So what we would do instead is that we would do something like this. Does that make sense? Actually, oh my god, look at this. Wow. Alright, we're pulling out paint. Okay. So when it comes to animation, a lot of people end up doing something like this. This becomes very janky and not very interesting, or just plain out wrong, because we do look at, like, we're looking at animation throughout the whole day of our lives, because everything's moving in our world. When you look at people, the way they move and stuff, this, if you had a graph looking like this, dead wrong, would just look dead wrong. There are certain scenarios where it would be fine, but most of the time, no. So what you would do instead is that you make sure to look at your curves and the way and the arcs of how something moves, like our box here, and then you basically try to change that into something like this. Very smooth motions. You get the idea. So we... Bad. Good. You know? That is how we work with curves. Very rookie mistake of doing the first one, because they don't pay attention to their arcs and curves. But make sure that it's the bottom one and that things make sense. Cool. Wasps can move sharply. Yeah, okay, so there are some exceptions. I'm pretty sure hummingbirds and stuff can also do that. Like, some things in the world, they do have the ability to work in specific manners and ways, but if we were to make a wasp or a hummingbird or something in real life, we would still not do this. We would still create curves. Because curves are interesting for us, and like instant stuff like this is not interesting for our eyes. It just looks wrong. Even if it's not wrong, it looks wrong for some reason, because our brains are good at tricking us. So right now what we're doing here is I want to create a bit more follow through, actually. So I'm selecting these keys, and then I'm gonna move them a couple of frames forward. So I press G and then X, and then I confirm it with left click. Now what I can do is that I can rotate R on the keyboard and then Y, and then do like this motion back, and then we want to key the rotation. So now we're getting this small little curve, as you can see down here, which becomes very interesting and a lot more fun to look at. We haven't worked a lot in the graph editor yet, but usually you do get very far into the graph editor because it's your friend. So the reason why we did this is because now we get this. Like, it's kind of a slingshot effect. We could even do like more than that and just like add a couple more things. 1, 2, 3. There's 3 different frames between that. So we can maybe take this, drag select, and G, and then X on the keyboard, move it a couple of frames forward. And then we can do R on the keyboard, and then Y for the Y axis, and then a bit forward, and then boom, key on I. Press I to key, and then rotation. So now we have this effect. Basically, we're just dragging it out a bit to get that something that's very, you know? It's very interesting. It's very cartoony to look at. Things like Disney, Pixar, all these different big companies, they use that a lot. They use a lot of that because it gets that very nice cartoony feel to something. I'm just editing this a bit. I just selected this and I pressed G, and then I pressed Y to go upwards, and then I confirmed it just to make it a bit less extreme. So now it looks like this. Look at that. We have created a pretty decent drag effect for an animation of an object. Sorry, I'm like, the way I'm sitting in real life, it's so weird. My legs start to hurt if I sit in specific ways. And it's maybe too much personal information, but have at it. Have at it. Cool. So now we have this. It already looks pretty interesting compared to what we had at the beginning. With this, now, you could kind of call this a block out, because this is just us working with specific keys and then something called a couple of in-betweens that basically explains what we want to create with this animation. Basically, so this, we haven't actually touched on any polishing, we would call it, like polishing the animation, because we haven't touched any of these keys individually. Because now look at this as an example. I can select these. I can select like this thing, and then it scoots around the keys, which basically allows me to manipulate it a bit more. And we do that so much, like all the time. That is what you spend your time on. You become it's like, it's so weird to think that, hey, as an animator, you don't really look at your model, you look more at this. Like at this is the important thing. Make sure that this looks good. It might not seem that interesting, but it's so interesting after you get the hang of it and it makes sense and stuff. It's just like, oh wow, this is a bad curve. Like, you can kind of see this curve, it goes up and then it goes straight down, which is kind of boring. So we can do this, and look at that, now it's a lot more smooth. Things like that comes kind of very interesting for you. All right, fangirling over animation, it's fine. Is it possible to go over how you did the last part, the jiggle effect? So the way I did the jiggling effect is that I basically just created a couple of extra keys. So you can see here, I have one that overshoots. So we're overshooting this specific one by making sure that it goes the opposite way. And then we key that. And then a couple of frames later, like 1, 2, 3, 4. In my case, I did 4 keys in between these. I did one that like goes a bit back instead. As you can see, it kind of bends backwards. And then a couple of frames forward, I did a bit forward, and then I like helped it get straight again to the base, or to the normal position of the animation, which basically gives this this jiggly effect, which looks pretty interesting. So that's how I did it. And now looking at this, honestly, some of these keys might be a bit overextended, so we could take like maybe this G, Y, and then move it down a bit, and then we could take these and then G and then Y and then move them down a bit, because the animation is a bit extreme. So now it might seem a bit more realistic. Actually, that means the last part is less interesting, so let's not do that. Just a bit. Cool. So this is what we do. Yeah. We'll try to recreate it. All right, tip, don't recreate it. Just do it. No, make it like your own. This specific thing you can recreate, because it's kind of like, that's how that specific thing works. Like you if you want to create an effect like that, you kind of need those specific keys to be able to do something. So do feel free to copy it if you do want to get that same effect. It becomes a pretty cool effect. Makes it feel a bit more alive and cartoony. Alright, so with this, I want to edit it. A couple of ways I can do that is, for example, I can see that this specific curve looks like it works, but we might be able to make it better. So I select this, and then I just like pull down on this to get a better curve like this. Now this curve looks a lot more smooth and nice to look at. So now you can see it becomes a bit heavier, which I actually quite like. I wasn't sure if it was going to work. Sometimes it doesn't work. If you don't feel like it works for you, you don't have to do it. I wanted to see what it did, and I think it looks pretty decent. That it feels kind of heavy. Now it's kind of a heavy, like it has a heavy head. I meant I'd use the steps in a way that suits my version. That's the spirit. I like the sound of that. A happy teacher. So now we get this a bit more heavy version. So you can sit here. At this point, I've kind of shown you the basics of how to do animation. You can also do it in the other axis. Like you can make it, like if you want to, you can make it jump and such. And then you just gotta remember that it should be the right the right axis to that it jumps. In this case, we can also make it a bit more interesting than it just right now. It just like stops. So what if we did something like a couple of frames forward? What did I do? Like 3-4 frames maybe ish. And then I'm copying this, and then I'm basically just G, Y, and then I'm moving it a bit back. Do you see? Now I'm getting this. Now I'm really complimenting the fact that it gets the whip. And makes this like motion seem a little more interesting, as if it wants to stop. Maybe like it's crossing a red light or something. I don't know, make up your own story. It's crossing a red light and it realizes, oh no, I'm gonna get... It always comes back to the cars. I was gonna say run over by a car or something.
That's morbid.
Yeah, it is. Let's not... We saved it though, so it's fine. It's good. It's cool. So these small little effects, even if you don't think it's going to do a lot, it randomly does a lot to the story, and that's kind of what you want to translate for the viewer, right? When it comes to animation, make it look interesting for the viewer, create some type of story that makes sense. And this makes sense for mine. You could also do a jump. For my animation specifically, like a lot of people start with the bouncing ball because it's a really good way of showing practicing some of the very basics of these different principles, such as like squash and stretch, which is a very big thing when it comes to animation as well. Like getting the effect of like, can I do that with this? What if I do there and then like squashing and stretching kind of like this, right? That also becomes a thing. And the bouncing ball is a really, really nice and handy way of doing that. In this case, I wanted to try and work with a couple of other principles, which I find a bit more interesting than just the bouncing ball. Like getting this drag effect, drag, follow through. I'm pretty sure there's, what's the last one called? Follow through. What's the last one called? Do you know, Christian?
12 principles of animation.
Oh, it's just called overlapping action, right? So yeah, there are these, like this specific thing that we're working on right now. It's called follow through, overlapping action, and drag, which are the things that we have used in this case. Drag being the effect of it being like dragged behind itself, or parts of it. Follow through is, I'm gonna embarrass myself. Follow through, I'm pretty sure, is the effect of like the aftermath of some type of motion, and the overlapping action is the extra effect of something. You know, search it up, look on Google. It makes sense. Okay, it makes sense. Trust. So what we have here is already pretty interesting. We have 30 minutes left. Christian is very nice. We're stopping at 19, by the way. So soon, when I'm finishing up this very simple animation, we're going something very simple today, just so you can all get the sense of how animating works. You're more than welcome to also use the specific small little simple model that I made for you to create your small personal animations, and then maybe post it in our Discord. So actually, while we're here, let's do a nice little shout out. So, which I actually forgot to say at the beginning of the stream. So, we're in education. We are called CADA Trumax, which is a 3D generalist education that teaches you in all of the different things when it comes to 3D. That means modeling, animation, texturing, rigging, sculpting, all these different things that you go through, and then you basically learn to use all of these different things in production. It's a school located in Denmark, in Copenhagen specifically. It's a 3.5-year education that teaches you all these things and pretty much makes you industry ready, so you can get a job after these 3.5 years. It's only physically, like it's only a physical school, meaning if you are from another country and you are interested in learning 3D and these different things, and you want to attend this school, you would have to move to Denmark. There are ways of getting compensation for moving and for living in Denmark and studying as well, because we do get paid in Denmark to study. The school is a private education, meaning it does also cost money, but this system that Denmark has of earning money from studying helps you be able to pay that school tuition fee. It's a very nice. It's great. I am a 7th semester student. I'm on my last semester, so I am nearly done, like completely done with this school. It's already been 3.5 years. It's crazy. It's very crazy to think about. It's gone very fast. I've met a lot of really cool people, made a lot of friends. It's so sick because the school basically it focuses a lot on making sure that the different classes they communicate a lot with each other, and basically as a way of making connections for the future when you get into the industry, but also just as to have a good time with people with like-minded views on what you want to do for work and on all these different things and interests and such. It's a very cool experience. And I personally have chosen to specialize in animation, which is what I do for work now, because I am, like I said, on my 7th semester, which is my internship semester. So I'm interning right now at a games company as an animator, which has been an absolutely amazing experience getting to do that every day. So yeah, if you are interested, do check out our website, which
CADA-edu.com.
Yeah, CADA-edu.com, or our moderator, Christian, will send it in chat to make sure that you can just click on it so you don't have to go on Google and do it yourself, because we all know that we don't like doing that ourselves. And it's a lot easier to click a link. I very much agree. We're all lazy. It's okay. So yeah, small little plug for what the school is about. This is a what we call 3D Bootcamp. I would assume you know that since you are here. We do it weekly, online right now for this month, but from next month on, we will be doing not only online, we will also be doing online. I won't be hosting the online bootcamps, I guess, but another person will, another prior student who is now working in the industry, will be coming and teaching the basics in Blender, while I will be hosting a physical bootcamp for people who are able to attend in real life, for a physical bootcamp where people will get the chance to use industry standard and industry used programs in the different subjects that you will also be learning in the online bootcamp, but just a bit more into specifics. So it's still available for new people that aren't used to 3D or 3D programs in general. So I will be going through all the basics of that, but we will also be using programs that I use on a daily basis when I work at my company. And that's going to be a very exciting time. I very much hope that people will attend, because that would be very cool. So do sign up for that, and you can find all the information on our website about the place and these different things. So do that, or keep an eye out for it, or follow our social media where we will also be posting stuff about that. So yeah, did I forget anything when it comes to shouting ourselves out?
Can I join?
Yeah, come on.
Right.
So this is Christian.
Scooch over so I can also be in frame here.
Yeah, it is the moderator.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Are we muted? Are we okay?
Oh, we're good. Oh,
okay.
I'm sorry. This is very loud. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Great. Okay. So next week is going to be the last of this online bootcamp, and that's going to be texturing. Same place, same time. And then after that, since we head into November, as Mito has been telling you, it's gonna then be either physical or it's gonna be online. So if there was one of these previous boot camps you haven't attended to, you can either go in and watch them as VODs on our YouTube channel. We have a little playlist called 3D Bootcamp. You can even see prior way back with different challenges and whatnot throughout. But when it comes to physical, if you live in Copenhagen, go in and sign up, because then we'll send out info about when and where it's going to happen here at our school, and also just going to give you notifications to keep you just in the loop. So when you get here, please join our Discord. We have the possibility of you joining as a guest, and then you can attend our bootcamp channel. So that means if you made something cool that you want to show us, or you want some feedback from either the students or other bootcamp attendees, we can also be there just to give a little bit of a compliment that has never hurt nobody.
Heck yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, or if you decide to blast it on social media instead, your work, either will it be on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, now named X.
No, it's still Twitter.
Still Twitter. Gotcha. Do tag us. You can find all our social media handles in the description down below as of this live stream. Connect with us. You can also shoot us any questions you should have in there, or you just have some cool 3D stuff to show us. We'll be more than happy to give a like and see what cool stuff you got.
Like we also said, we're both students, so we are also very excited about seeing other people's stuff because we're not like teachers and stuff. Well, I'm obviously teaching here right now in some basics of 3D, but we're very excited about seeing other people. And every time a new class starts and stuff at the school, it's the most exciting thing because you realize that the people who just joined and create the same type of projects as you, except they're like 10 times better.
Oh, they're crushing it.
So that is a very fun experience to pay attention to and look at. So do feel free to share all you guys' work of what you do in your free time or at Bootcamp as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, wherever you can find it. Preferably Discord. It's a bit easier to also get reactions there.
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing for those who will not be able to attend or kind of want to have a little bit more of the whole bootcamp kind of vibe, but you cannot attend here in Copenhagen, whether it be that you're out in another country. We do have something called 3D Essentials, which is a way more in-depth of getting to really know just like the foundation of the principles within 3D, whether it be modeling, texturing, rigging, and animation, lighting as well, and compositing. These type of different...
That much?
Yeah,
Damn,
yeah.
okay.
It is there's a small fee for it, but then you take it online and then you get the feedback from the teachers. You also get access to a private Discord chat where you get the direct feedback from the teachers at the school here, which then also really can help in just like improving your overall portfolio, whether you want to join either here or you just want to give a proper kickstart to your 3D career. It is not something that's been live streamed, so that means it's just basically videos on demand. So you take it in your pace. Felt like you skipped something, you can always go back 5 minutes and take it over. And there's no expiration for it, so you take it as you go. So it's not meaning like that when you sign up, you have to complete it within a certain amount of time. It's really just in your own pace. So if you have work at the same time, it's a great little hobby to really kick into. But you can find it on our website as well.
But yes. Let us finish up the animation before we finish off today.
And I'll be going.
Small little plug. So we have like 15 minutes-ish. If you have any questions about anything, that being the education or the lesson today or animation or my personal work or all these different things, do feel free to ask away. I am here to answer. Cool. So we have this small little effect. So now what we can do is that we can create this this dragging effect a bit more interestingly. So while you have all these different things selected, we actually want to the top 3 bones that we have keyed the rotation on specifically, because that is the important part in this specific case. We actually want to deselect the last one. You do that by I hold down control and then I dragged and then I let go. You can also just like click. Shift click is to add. Control click is to, oh, you cannot control click. Okay. Control drag to deselect it. So now we have these two. You can also just select them. The reason why we're doing this is so that we can take this, pretty much all of it, not all of it, but most of it, except for the first one. So we want to leave the first one. And while we have these two selected, what we can do is that we can take all these and then we can press G on the keyboard, which moves them. But then we can press X and then we can move them a couple of frames forward. So I'm going to do that. G, X, move. I'm going to do 2 frames. 2 frames is fine. Now I want to deselect the second one as well and only have the top one selected. And I want to do the exact same process. I want to take all these different ones, and then I'm going to press G, and then I'm going to press X, and I'm going to move them a couple of frames forward. What this does is that all these different keys that we have created, now they have been delayed. So that's the thing that we do a lot when it comes to polishing as well. We want to make sure that we delay a lot of these keys and motions to make sure that all the different joints, the way they move, that they don't move at the same time. Because when they move at the same time, it makes them look a lot less interesting. We don't like looking at that. Kind of boring. So now we're getting this effect. Look at that. We made a snake. So that's a really like simple and easy way of getting this more like, kind of gets like the tail movement, because we still have that like bouncing jiggly effect, but it becomes a lot more smooth, as if it's like it has a lot more bones, or it's a like kind of like a what's a good like animal with a very smooth tail, like a fox. I guess they have a pretty smooth tail. I don't know.
Are you thinking about fur, or do you want to like?
No, I mean like the way that it moves. I guess it's a snake tail, even though a snake technically doesn't have a tail, right?
Like just
You're a cat, like a cat animal, some type of cat. Yeah. So that's a very cool way of doing that and getting that small effect. You might feel like it's a bit too much. Now, I did it with 2 keys instead of just 1 key. You could do 1 key. You could also make it even more extreme and do 3 keys instead. Can you show it again? Yeah, I can show what like a different way of doing it. So I'm just gonna Control Z until I go back to where I was at the beginning. So that's where I am now. This might also very much be the effect that you wanted from it, but I wanted to make it a bit more smooth. So now I'm going to try and do it with 1 key instead of 2. So basically, I take these top joints. If I'm looking at it from this angle, I'm selecting this and this one, the 2 top bones. I'm just going in this like side view, because it's a bit easier to like look at the animation and the way that it moves, since we're only moving in one axis. But after I've chosen these 2 bones, I drag select all of the keys except for the first one. Leave the first one, and then I press G, and then I press X, and then I move it a frame forward. Now I deselect the second one, and I do this exact same thing, except for the first one. I press G, X, and I move it 1 frame forward. So now we still have the more rigidy, jiggly feeling, and not so much like smooth tail feel, but it still gives a lot more personality to it than it did before, when everything moved at the same time, making it a bit boring. It's kind of the same concept as if any of you have any experience when it comes to sculpting or modeling and these different things, or a character. When you're making a character, you usually work with the character in symmetry to make sure that all the different parts of the character is very easy to work with, and that it doesn't like go and ruin something. But then after you've like made the base of your character, you basically go in and make it asymmetrical to make it more interesting for the human eye, because no like person or character or something in real life is actually completely symmetrical. So sometimes we go in and change things up to make sure that it's not completely the same on both sides, making it look a lot more interesting. It's kind of the same concept as here, getting that nice effect. I could also do it with even more keys than just 1. Like now I did 1. Now I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna do it with. Give me a number.
5.
No, that's too much. All right, we're gonna do 4. So we're gonna scoot it 4 keys. These 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Deselect the second one. Make sure that all these different ones are selected again, And then GX 1, 2, 3, 4. And now it kind of looks like this. That is horrible. Now it's like kind of a robot coming up. We don't want that effect because that just makes it look plain bad. I mean, so let's do maybe 3 keys instead. 1, 2, 3, 3. And take these and deselect and select, and then GX 1, 2, 3. Make sure to deselect. I don't know if it makes a difference, but just deselect and then select them again to make sure that you don't edit something else at the same time. What does it look like with 3? Honestly, also really bad. So it seemed like 2 was the right choice. I kind of liked 2. Made it look a bit like a tail, a very cute tail. And now we have that tail effect again, as you can see. Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with that effect. And that is literally just to make a very, very simple, like, stop motion from this type of model, and like skewing the keys a bit to make sure that it looks a bit more interesting, whatever effect you want to do. We use this technique a lot when it comes to tails, or I don't know, tentacles, or arms, I guess, or hair, all these different clothing as well when it comes to animation. A lot of these different things that we kind of just want to flow around and do their own thing and have fun in their own little world. We tend to do that type of effect with that. I think I'm gonna do this and then maybe scoot back a bit. Make it a bit more. So now there's basically, I took the second one that scoot 2 keys, and then the top one is scoot only 3 keys, making it like less taily. Can we try jump? We have like 8 minutes, so no. but we will have animation next month again, both physically and online. So do feel free to pay attention to that. Honestly, after we've done this, you could easily do a jump yourself. So you just take this bottom key and then you press, in this case I want to press G and then Z and then move it up, and then key, and then location. And now if you look at this, now we've technically made a jump. Worst jump in existence. Maybe a way that we can go in and edit this specifically is that we can. I only want to work in this. Is there a way for me to? I don't know if there is. I'm just gonna mute these ones. Actually, I'm gonna hide them. Okay, so now we have this one, and then I'm just gonna take this, and then I'm gonna, nope, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm gonna take the first key, and I'm gonna do this, so it jumps instantly instead. And then I'm gonna take this last key, and I'm gonna scoot this as well. No, actually, I wanna make a new key, so I'm gonna take this, drag this over, so it falls earlier. And then I want to create this. I want to take that. I want to make it free. So you can rewatch what I'm doing here. I'm clicking very fast because we don't have a lot of time. But this is basically, now we got like an extra jump. It doesn't look good. Don't get me wrong. It looks horrible actually. What if we take this? No, that's worse. That is so much worse. That is even worse. You get the gist of it. you could just like make a jump. How can we add a new object? I mean, you can save what you have right now and then maybe open up a new one, a new file with the one that I gave. And then you can try out a jump instead of just a slide, because that might be also a very interesting task for you to do, and it could help you create a lot of nice stuff. So I'm just gonna go in and automatic this so we don't have the jump anyway. And now we're back to this effect. An online bootcamp purely dedicated to animation. Well, yeah, so the online bootcamp being like one day, kind of like today, that is specifically animation for like 1.5 hours. That'll be online and physically next month. In case you're interested in either of them again. Again, I won't be the teacher for the next month, so you will have someone else who will be teaching these different things, like animation as well. But do feel free to attend it. Maybe you'll learn something new. I'm pretty sure that teacher or that person won't do the exact same thing as me, and it might be a bit different. Maybe they'll do the jump. Who knows? Then you can follow along in that. I need to figure out what I want to do specifically for my class physically when you come and work in the program that I'm more used to, which is also going to be very fun. So yeah. But yes, every month, every Wednesday, we will have a boot camp. And if you feel like you want to come in and work on something, even if you're not following what I'm doing, but you just want to listen to someone in the background doing stuff, then you can always do that. I mean, if I want to have 2 objects in one scene, I actually don't really know how Blender works when it comes to that. I don't know if you can copy out like this specific model, because this is kind of because of the rig, it becomes a bit yeah, as you can tell, it just kind of, so now you have this thing, right? I don't think you can actually do anything with it, so I don't know if you can. Otherwise, you can take this model maybe and then export it like this, and then maybe you can export it as an OBJ or something, and then import it into the scene, and then you might have 2. I'm not too sure how Blender works when it comes to rigs and these models and such. Otherwise, find some models on the internet. There are so many different models that you can use for Blender with the rigs for you to be able to animate. So just search for Blender free rigs, and then there are a ton of sites that help you. Like, I know one that's called Agora. If you search for like Agora rigs, for example, you can look at a site with a ton of different rigs that give you a lot of opportunities to work with different models. So yeah, feel free to do that. But yes, that is the lessons for today. I really hope that you guys will join the Discord server and show off some of the stuff that you guys have been working on. I would love to see what you guys did today, if you feel like it. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the animation lesson. I had a lot of fun. Hope you guys did as well. And yeah, I hope to see you guys next week, where it will be about texturing, also in Blender. So yeah, take care, bye.